Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe, presented by BetOnLine. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best soup analysts in the business. Also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael World B. Freer, who is a senior writer at StatFactor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. And tonight, we're thrilled to have on a friend of the show in Los Angeles.
Oscar winner. You got to put that in there.
Oh, let's do it.
I got no awards. You guys are selling these awards. I got nothing, man.
Oh,
I got a little championship trophy up there. That's it for like 20 years ago.
Yeah, you won your softball league one year, probably.
Yeah, that's it.
Got a bowling trophy.
Exactly. Should I keep rolling or should we?
No, keep going. Yeah, it's fun.
Okay.
Let's go finish the intro.
So we're having on Los Angeles Laker reporter and fellow Believe podcaster Ryan Ward joining us to discuss The Lake Show. And this is episode number 150, the Zach Randolph episode, as Zeebo wore number 50 for 5 different teams throughout the course of his 17-year NBA career. Before we tip things off, just a quick reminder. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. The Final Four is upon us, and BetOnline has more ways to stay in the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to MLB, NHL, and UFC, and even the Kentucky Derby and NFL season futures are ready for you to bet. In between games, head on over to BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here, and we'll start things off here tonight with Bruce giving our guest a proper introduction.
Our guest tonight never has a dull moment when it comes to the team he covers. It's our pal Ryan Ward. He covers Bronny James and his LA Laker teammates, and is host of the Jello Jigglin podcast right here on Believe Network, as Russ mentioned. It's his second visit, so he has officially earned the title friend of the show. We're excited that he's here. And Ryan, we have got a lot to cover with you, but first things first. Have you watched Running Point, the Max series based on Jeanie Buss with Kate Hudson as the Jeanie character?
I did. I watched the first episode and then I turned it off because I thought it was like a wonky kind of a weird show. And then I saw somebody else say something like, "Oh, it's pretty good. It's like you just gotta get through the first couple episodes." And I'm like, okay. So I gave it another shot and I was hooked. I binged the whole thing and I was like, okay, not bad. Kate Hudson's really good in it, and I think it just gets kind of funnier and funnier as it goes along. It's not what I expected. I thought it would be kind of like more of like a Jeanie Buss kind of biography type thing, like more serious, not so goofy. But I kind of dug it after a while. I thought it was cool. Yeah,
it's very fun. Both Russ and myself worked with Kurt Rambis back in the day in different places. Russ worked with him in New York. I worked with him at ESPN. But I also am very friendly with Kurt's wife, Linda, who's one of the executive producers of the show. So I sent her an email last week just after I finished binging it. I said, "Hey, Linda, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, blah, blah, blah." And she's there, "Yep, we're hard at work on the second season." So it will be coming back. So that'll be fun for next year.
Very cool.
All right.
So let's start off. Obviously, we're going to discuss the Lakers here. So they've been really streaky in March there, to say the least. There, going on an 8-game winning streak between February and March, and then they lose 4 straight, then they win 3 straight, then they lose 3 in a row, and now they won 2 of the last 3. So, how do you see this team finishing out the remainder of the NBA season?
Honestly, it's really hard to read. It's like they're going on benders. You know what I mean? Like they go on these benders, they look really good, and then they just look awful the next stretch. And it's very strange. But I mean, you got 2 guys, LeBron and Luka, who are essentially like kind of mirror images of each other. Just one's like super athletic, and the other one's more of a shooter, right? So, I think they've struggled a bit to figure out where they should be, like who's commanding the offense. It should be Luka. I think even JJ said that at one point. because it just seems to flow a bit better when he does it, and LeBron can take more of a back seat, conserve his energy. And when LeBron's locked in, obviously he's a better defender, so maybe he should concentrate more on that side of the floor. But it's weird. I don't know how this is going to finish out, and the West is so competitive and close that literally every night, like even tonight's game against Houston, it's a huge game, right? Like it could mess things up for the Lakers even more. And it's going to be a tough test because Houston can play defense. And I think Udoka kind of gets under LeBron's skin a little bit, and so does Dylan Brooks. So I think it's going to be a real fun game. And then they got 2 games against OKC in OKC, and then another one against Houston. And then I think one against Golden State. And the rest of the games are kind of throwaways, but there could be like trap games too. So I don't know. If they played up to their potential, I mean, they could win a lot of games in this last 8-game stretch, but there's no guarantee they're going to do that. There just isn't.
Not at all. And I think the craziest thing with this team, just given how streaky they've been, is the fact that, LeBron has been out for the Lakers for some time of this stretch, and they went 3-4 in those games. And then since his return, they're 3-2. So I'm curious to get your thoughts. You watch them much more than we do on a regular basis. What are the major differences that you're seeing from this group when LeBron's on the floor compared to when he's off the floor in the games that he's available?
I think the one thing I noticed right away when he came back that first game or first couple of games is the spacing was different.
Okay.
Like Luka, for some reason, I think it's because he just draws so much attention that these guys just get, as DFS says, butt naked, wide open, right?
Yeah.
And they're just, and that's an uncomfortable feeling for an NBA player who's used to having a hand in their face all the time. So that's kind of like a slow process to, be hitting those shots. But once they started hitting those shots, I mean, Gabe Vincent became dependable. DFS became dependable. Rui has kind of always been there. And then he got hurt and then he came back and he's back to where he was. Reaves, obviously, connect when he actually gets to see the floor. But when LeBron comes on, I think it kind of messes up the spacing a little bit. It's not a bad problem to have LeBron on the floor. It's just a little awkward, and I think everybody feels it. Who's the captain right now? Like who should we be, following the lead of? And I think it'll come together. It is still very early in the process of these guys playing together. I think people forget that because when they have looked amazing, you're like, damn, these guys look like they've been playing together for years. But it's kind of like when AD came the first time. He came in and he's just like kind of seamless. But that was different. You know what I mean?
And I think with LeBron James, when he takes a backseat to Luka and hands the keys to Luka to kind of drive the offense, I think that's when they're at their best. But I think there's times where LeBron's kind of hesitant to just dangle the keys in front of Luka and here, take him. I just think he's kind of still trying to find that balance, and this is still just an adjustment period for him.
Well, I should have said this, but one thing I noticed too, maybe you'll see it tonight. When LeBron has the ball at the top of the floor and he's stopped dribbling, right? Or he's just gotten it and he's just doing his like rocker step thing, right? For like half an hour. Yeah. Everybody is standing around. No one moves. Mm-hmm. But when Luka has the ball, everyone's moving, right? Yeah. Everybody's like, if I move, I'm getting the ball. Especially like Jackson Hayes, right? Who has been incredible ever since Luka come on. He reminds me so much of JaVale McGee from 2020. He's just that consistent lob threat. He can't play defense like JaVale or even rebound like JaVale, but he can do what he did on offense. And I think that's all you kind of need from the guy. But I also think that's going to be the Achilles heel in the playoffs. They're going to play big teams. Like they kind of struggled against Memphis's size. Edey basically took Jackson Hayes completely out of the game. He only played, I think, like single digit minutes, and that's never happened since Luka's been in town. So it's playoffs are going to be another beast entirely, man. And that's the real question, is whether or not they can just flip that switch and get back to that, dominant mode. I think offense should be okay, but defense is going to be the big thing.
As we record our show this week, we're just shy of when the Lakers tip it off with Houston. That game will start in a little while. based on what we're taping. So that's a huge test for the Lakers, okay?
Mhm.
The Rockets have been on fire. I mean, they've won like 12 out of 13 games, whatever. I mean, so this game and their next game versus Houston, which is near the end of the season, could very well decide who finishes second in the West, whether it's Houston, the Lakers, or Denver, who may benefit from the fact that those guys are going to beat each other up a little bit, if, the Rockets and Lakers perhaps. So do you think the Lakers have enough to finish second out West given their remaining schedule and their losing road record?
No, I don't. I think, well, you look at those 2 games against OKC. OKC has been incredible, and they're resting their guys, which is remarkable to me. I mean, even Boston's kind of doing the same thing, right? They're still winning, even though they're resting Tatum. I think Brown's not playing tonight, right? Jaylen Brown?
No, he was off tonight.
Yeah, it's just like this kind of, they're just mixing up these guys because my job at RotoWire throughout the day is to track all injuries. So I'm like writing these little notes about every injury that comes through, and you just see these trends with these title contenders / playoff teams, and they're all doing the same thing. They're all mixing their guys in, and then there's obviously the tanking teams who are just like starting to, like Zion and McCollum are out for the season now, right? I think that happened a couple hours ago.
Yep.
So teams are quitting and other teams are gearing up. But I don't know. I don't have the faith in them to do that right now. I just that the playoffs, kind of scare me a little bit for these guys because it's going to be a kick in the teeth, and if they don't react, they could fold fast, and that would suck, obviously.
Hey, Ryan, as Bruce kind of pointed out, Lakers have been great at home with 28-9, but they've kind of struggled great at home, struggled on the road there. I believe something like 17-20 or whatever. What has it been about the road games this season for the Lakers? What stood out as a big difference between? I know teams traditionally, unless you're in Boston, play better at home than on the road. But what is it about this particular team that there's a pretty big gap between their home and road splits, record-wise?
It's a good question, but at the same time, I think they were kind of held to or dealt a bad hand. Like they had that stretch where they had 3 back-to-backs in a row, which was I've never seen before. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Yeah. And they were against good teams. I think 4 of those games was 2 against Denver, 2 against Milwaukee, and that's brutal. And I think that took a lot out of them. I'm not saying because it's the whole season, but still, Lakers have a tendency to play down to their opponents, no matter who they are. Look at Chicago. Chicago beat them twice. Yeah. One was at home, one was on the road by that ridiculous Giddey half-court heave,
Wild finish.
Yeah, that was crazy. And it was crazy the night before with LeBron getting the tip in, right, to win that game. So they almost lost that one, too, in Indiana. But I don't know. The third quarter is always there is Achilles heel, too. And for some reason on the road, it's really bad. I don't know what JJ says to them in the locker room. I love JJ. I think he's a good coach. But they never seem to come out with the same kind of energy in the third quarter for some reason. And it's been a persistent problem. I mean, and that's another thing that'll kill you in the playoffs, right? You can't mess around. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure. I don't think there's one thing to pinpoint. It's just kind of like an overall thing. They're just, for whatever reason, they struggle on the road.
So with Luka and LeBron, their numbers, they're both Hall of Famers, obviously. Their numbers are remarkably similar. I mean, Luka's at like 27, 8 and 8, rounding things up, basically. LeBron's at 25, 8 and 8. Very similar, arguably still the top duo in the NBA. But Austin Reaves, man, I mean, he is averaging over 20, 4.5 rebounds, almost 6 assists. He is a legit number 3, and that makes them a formidable trio. I mean, how far do you think, how dependent are they on Reaves doing his thing if they're going to advance in the playoffs?
I think very dependent now. I think because they've gotten used to it. They've gotten used to him being a stud every night, So now they're kind of leaning on it. Like I've noticed with Luka, a trend with Luka lately is if he doesn't come out firing and get hot in the first half, he struggles the whole game. Yeah. I mean, he still amazingly, stuffs the stat sheet, right? But he just can't hit those shots all of a sudden. Like, kind of what happened last game. But Reaves, man, like he's incredible. I keep waiting for him to drop off or just kind of come back down to earth. But I think this is who he is. And I've even talked to guys at work and I've been like, you know what? What's his ceiling, man? I don't know what this guy's ceiling is. I don't know if he's an all-star. I don't know if, he's good. And somebody came up with the comp, Manu Ginobili. And I was like, oh my God, that is like right on.
That's a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah. But it makes a lot of sense when you compare their games. I think Manu was more of a high flyer, kind of, right? A little bit more, but I think he was a little bit taller too. But they got that same kind of game, right? They're very crafty. They're very sneaky. Like you don't expect much from them, and then all of a sudden they're at the rim. They have no fear whatsoever. This guy has no fear, which is crazy considering he's playing against two generational guys, right? And he's still taking these, threes from 2 feet back. It's like wow. But yeah, I think he's huge. If one of those three struggle, it could be rough. Could be rough for them, but they do have a lot of guys that are playing their role and they play very well in their role, but they can't play much higher than that. Like if Reaves all of a sudden goes flat, I don't know. I think they'll probably try and lean on Rui, but then I think Rui can be streaky too. So that those three have to kind of ball out. I mean, you need 60 points from those guys every night, right? At the very least.
Yeah. Now, Ryan, you mentioned just how fearless that Austin Reaves is. I think a lot of that kind of just goes to the credit of playing next to LeBron James. You're playing against arguably one of the best players ever, if not the best in some people's eyes. I mean, if he instills the confidence in you to go ahead and take those shots and you're having success against him in practice, obviously he's probably had a lot of success in practice against a guy like Anthony Davis, a top-tier front court player, and now playing alongside Luka. I feel like you can play alongside anybody and be fearless once LeBron kind of endorses you and gives you the green light to kind of play your game. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, just imagine how good he'd be if he played next to MJ.
You might be comparing him to Scottie Pippen. I don't know.
I know.
Good one, Ryan.
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead and elaborate. I had a follow-up question, but if you have more,
go ahead.
I was going to bring up one of LeBron's other teammates, and that's Dalton Knecht. Of course, he came out of the gate strong in Los Angeles, and then of course got dealt in that trade that was rescinded for Mark Williams. I'm just kind of wanting to get a pulse check from you where you kind of see him. Do you think he's a top 5 rookie in this year's class? I mean, there's quite a bit of talent, believe it or not. We've got Stephon Castle, Jalen Wells having a big season. Richeche, he's been big, especially even last night in Milwaukee. He really exploded. Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington. Do you put Dalton Knecht in that group, and how do you think he fares? Do you think he's a top 5 guy this year?
I think the first half of the season he was, and then he fell out of the rotation, and then he kind of lost his confidence a little bit. Like he just went on this streak where he just wasn't hitting anything. And I think JJ kind of lost that confidence in him and made him sit on the bench. It's weird the way JJ plays him. I don't really get it because he is a threat out there. He can do anything offensively. That's the crazy thing. I love his game. He's not a great defender, but then again, in this NBA, there's like a handful of guys that are really good defenders, right? And everybody else is kind of like mediocre or worse. But I think if he had more time, he'd be in that top 5, but not right now. Top 10 for sure, but not top 5. I think he's got a lot of potential. It's just where does he fit from here on out? And what if they do something else in the summer? I wouldn't be surprised to try and trade him again, right? To try and get that big, because that's the missing piece here is that they don't have like that. In retrospect, maybe they made a mistake rescinding that trade. You know what I mean? Because that's a glaring weakness right now, and teams are going to take advantage of that in the playoffs.
No doubt.
Hey, Ryan, how would you grade out JJ Redick in his first year as head coach?
That's a good question. B is the first thing that comes to mind. I'd give him a solid B, maybe a B plus. But
what's been good? What's been bad?
I love his intensity. He's got that kind of old school feel about him. Like you could tell that guy's passionate. He's not bogus. He's not just, spitting out cliches every night, which I think a lot of coaches tend to do and kind of lean on a system, don't know how to adjust. He seems super smart, super passionate, knows what works and what doesn't. And he does it perfect example, the last game. Jackson Hayes wasn't working. It just wasn't working. And he knew that quick. And he got him out and he kept him out. And I think he went back in the game for a little bit and then Edey just kind of ate him up and it back to the bench. You know what I mean? So there's not this like, you'd figure for a first-time head coach and a guy with no experience would just be like kind of like shell-shocked by everything going on, especially with all the added drama of LA. Going through that thing with the fires of this house burning down. I mean, just so much stuff. And he has just endured all of it. And he's come out on top. So I'm so impressed by it. So solid B, probably a B plus.
Now, come playoff time, he certainly seems like the coach that's going to be able to think on his feet and make adjustments on the fly for a 7-game series. Do you agree with that? I know he has no playoff experience, but I think he has proven any doubt wrong this year with his rookie year coaching performance and all the adjustments he's had to make with the wild season the team's had. So do you think he's more than ready to take on the pressure of the playoffs as well?
I don't know for sure, but if I were to guess, I'd say yes. Yeah. I would be like, yeah, he's shown enough to where it'd be like, the bright lights really mess with a lot of people in LA, whether you're a player or a coach. It's just, some people just don't work out. Like Dwight, the first time he came, bright lights were too much. Russell Westbrook, bright lights were too much, and all the talking and all that stuff on top of it. But he's done fine. Like he's done so well where he is not a topic of discussion on a weekly basis. Do you know what I mean? Like the only time a coach hits the headlines is if he says something crazy, which JJ has done a couple times, but or is just making mistakes and after mistake after mistake after mistake and losing the locker room, right? And you just don't see that with him. He is just locked in. And that just, for some reason, that the whole Grizzlies situation just popped up in my head, like how crazy that was. Like I still don't understand what happened there.
Well, the new coach didn't lead them to a win in his first game on Monday night. I can tell you that much. That's the 14-point game with a few seconds left. Anyway, all right. So the most important stuff we have to say for last about the Lakers. Bronny's father has gotten into some petty stuff with Stephen A. Smith and Brian Windhorst. He shows up on Pat McAfee's show and starts acting kind of like a fool, starts punching down at people. Is this old man butthurt because very few people want to call him the GOAT? And is he sort of acting out a little bit? I mean, what is up with this?
Well, so when I started covering this team, I covered Kobe, right? I covered crazy, locked in, terrifying Kobe Bryant, right? Who had just mindset and that was it. And nothing seemed to really faze him. LeBron is kind of the polar opposite of that. He's incredibly talented and he's going to go down as an all-timer. But he does listen to everything and take offense to it and absorb it, sometimes in the wrong ways. And then he does stuff like this. And you're just like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be smarter than this. Like, what are you doing, dude? And then the thing I did find very strange about that whole situation, I mean, the whole thing was strange regardless. But so he goes on an ESPN show to bash the top guy at ESPN. And then the game being played that night was on ESPN.
Nice.
I'm like, this all is lining up in a weird WrestleMania kind of way. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on here? I don't understand it. Like, it just seems so kind of put together in a sick, twisted way to like manipulate everybody on all sides, especially the fans, right? You know, I don't know, man. It was unnecessary because you think about it. If Stephen A's paid to say these kind of things, right? He's paid to have these crazy opinions. That's his job. That's why he gets paid $20 million a year, right? LeBron is not paid to react, right? His job is to play basketball and concentrate on the court and his teammates and all that stuff. And he does that like outlandish interview with Pat McAfee of all people. Like I was shocked when I saw it. I had to do a double take when I saw him on there because I don't think it was like they didn't like promote it. Oh, he's going on there. They maybe they did, but I didn't catch wind of it. I just turned it on in the morning. I was like, why is LeBron on this show right now? And sure enough, I mean, that is just like we're in a weird time in the media in sports. It's very odd, especially from when I started. And I'm sure, Bruce, all you guys can say the same thing, right? You've seen a different time,
Sure.
This is a weird time.
Well, it's funny. I think the whole thing with LeBron makes him just look bad. But okay, if you want to lock horns with Stephen A. Smith, okay, you're talking about two guys in the heavyweight division, all right? Brian Windhorst is just a working journalist, analyst, great guy. I thought his reaction to what happened was perfect. He's there. LeBron James doesn't owe me anything. I owe LeBron James plenty. He totally took the high road. Brian Windhorst knows that if he hadn't worked at the Akron Beacon Journal before ESPN when LeBron was kind of growing up, and that, he knows that his career is in large part due to the fact that he knew LeBron when. And for LeBron to take a shot at a guy like that, to me, was just sort of like, like a big kid beating up on a little kid like a bully. With Stephen A., I didn't feel it like a bully sort of a deal. But with Brian, I did. Because I know Brian pretty well. I know Stephen very well, too. And it didn't surprise me at all that he took the high road and said what he said, because that's who Brian Windhorst is.
Yeah, he's a pro, right?
Yep.
He's a pro. He knows what was he stand to win by saying anything, right? Which is what LeBron should have said in his head. What do I stand to win by saying anything, right? Mm-hmm. Stephen A., I mean, everybody's debating about who won this little beef or whatever, which is probably going to go on for years. But Stephen A. won. Stephen A. won because everyone's talking about Stephen A. Yep. That's all he wanted. I'm sure ESPN's loving it, like drooling over this, right? Whoa, more. Let's get Stephen A. in front of, front row of another game, and see what happens. Like, I swear to God, I bet you that's going to happen. Watch, it'll happen in the playoffs or something crazy.
Yeah, they'll wait for the big stage for that for sure.
Yeah. It's just it does feel so staged and all that, but to say that about Windhorst, like, dude, come on, do you really like? Oh, what? So this guy admires you, and you're gonna knock him down? I don't. It just seemed petty. I think Wilbon really went off, didn't he, about that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I love. I love the fact Wilbon is just completely unfiltered. He just says the complete honest take. He's not, he even said like what was it? ESPN had been telling him to talk more about Bronny or something. And he's just like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, why would I do that?
He just keeps it real.
I love this guy. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
All right, Ryan, I got two fun quick hitters before we let you go here tonight. Number one, obviously one of the things LeBron just recently said was the fact that a friend of our show, Giannis, would score 250 points in the 70s. So I want to ask you, how many points do you think he would score? Because thankfully Giannis squashed it. It's like there's no way to compare the eras. There's no way I'm scoring 250 points, but I'll take the compliment. But curious to if you could throw out a number, how much do you think Giannis would score in the 70s?
Oh, man. I mean, he'd be a 30-point scorer a night, I think. 25 to 35. I think he'd probably be around the same. I think people act like those generations are so different. But the physicality back then, he'd get beat up. You know what I mean? They would throw his ass to the ground, just like they did with Jordan. They would beat him up because he would be so imposing, right? It looks like he could do anything on the court. And they'd send him to the line because he can't shoot free throws, right? So I think LeBron, that's another, like, what are you talking about, dude? Dude, like, come on. Yes, he could play in that area. Yes, he could dominate in that area, but don't act like it's going to be any more than the guys that were already dominating in that area. I mean, how cool would it be to see him against like Kareem and Wilt, though, and like Bill Russell if you're going to go further back? Like, that would have been incredible. I mean, I think that would have been a show for sure.
I'd pay to see that for sure. And last but certainly not least, you talked about how LeBron reads and hears everything. So I got to ask you, has he ever called you out on anything or made mention that he saw any of your tweets or stories or anything like that?
No, thank God. Thank God. It happened with Westbrook though.
Okay.
But not with and Dwight actually, but not LeBron. Some of these fans, the diehards for one player, right, can be really unbearable because they just there's no logic, there's no sense. They just want hate on you because you said something about somebody they love. You know what I mean?
Ryan,
And
if LeBron ever takes a shot at you, here's all you got to say to him. Say, dude, you're only on this team because of your son. You'll make worldwide headlines. It will be seen all over the planet.
Yeah, it wouldn't be worth it, man.
You'll never do this show again because you'll be so big.
Yeah, somebody told me that the other day too. So like, that's how you make money in this business, by doing the crazy stuff that gets a rise out of people, right? I'm like, I can't do that stuff. I mean, I'll try to be funny every once in a while, but I can't do the outlandish, like I'm clearly like over the top stuff.
Yeah.
I just can't do that.
Not us.
Maybe
either.
that's my problem.
Well, you're still a young man. You can change.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, Ryan, we definitely appreciate your time here on 48 Minutes here tonight. Before you go, let our listeners know how they can find you on Twitter and talk a little bit about Jello Jigglin.
Well, I'm on Twitter, all the platforms. It's the same handle. It's Ryan Ward at LA. I've had that forever. Trying to ramp up this podcast thing, do the video thing like you guys have been doing. I know Bruce gave me some tips last time we came on, or I talked to him after. So I got a lot of work to do. I'm like setting up all this stuff you guys can see in the background.
Looks good.
Trying to upgrade everything,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
take it to the next level. Because this is the future, right? It's just going to be all video at some point. So got to get there.
Yeah,
Wow,
we're the future. Holy cow.
I don't know about us specifically.
All right.
I think this kind of content.
My mistake, sir. My mistake.
We're trying.
Yeah, we're trying our best. But Ryan, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and best of luck to your Lakers tonight in their big game against Houston.
Cool. Thanks, man. For sure.
Awesome. We're going to take a quick break and come back with you right after this. Welcome back into the 48 Minutes podcast. Well, that was a lot of fun talking with Ryan Ward. Always a good hang and good listen there. So we appreciate him coming on. Let's go ahead and talk about a team that's having a lot of fun right now, Bruce, and that is the Boston Celtics as they beat Memphis on the road on Monday night. And that completed a 6-in-a-row road trip, which is quite historic. I'll let you touch more about that in just a moment. But they are now 18-3 in their last 21 games, and that brings their current win streak to, I believe, 9? 10? 9 in a row now. So Are they peaking at the right time, and are they flipping the switch?
Well, I really think, this is sort of something that I was expecting out of them. And it happens a lot of times with a team that knows that they have what it takes to win the championship. I think you got to give a lot of credit. First of all, it's the first 6-0 road trip in the history of the Celtics franchise, which is saying something given what the history of the Celtics franchise is all about. But yes, I think they are. And I think what's really kind of interesting, and Ryan was talking a little bit about this with injuries and having coaches have to adapt to injuries. I think Joe Mazzulla's done an unbelievable job because he's had guys sit out some games where they were a little bit injured, but they have so much talent, it allows the guys that are further down in the rotation to get meaningful minutes in games that matter. So when it comes playoff time and he gets somebody who's in foul trouble, and all of a sudden, okay, Kata, I need you to come off the bench, and you got to play like 6 minutes here in the second quarter. He's just been really outstanding. But the brain trust, I'm not going to put it all on Joe, but he's the head coach. He gets most of the credit. Cassell, Tony Dobbins, the other guys, Brad Stevens. So yes, I think they are flipping the switch. They are peaking at the right time because I think they've got it figured out.
Yeah. What's your take, World B? And at this point, just given kind of the road, the speed bumps, I should say, that the Cavs have faced, are you more fearful of the Celtics now in the East as the top dogs, or not quite yet?
There's reason to like them. I mean, 9 straight wins is 9 straight wins, and they're doing it with ridiculously tough defense of late. They shut down Memphis on the road again tonight. With Memphis has been really dropping off here lately. The only thing I would caution is if you look at the 9 wins now, 8 of them, the first 8 came against teams with losing record. They were beating the Nets, they were beating the Heat, They were, they weren't exactly beating the Blazers. They weren't exactly world beaters here that you're talking about. They haven't beaten a team with a winning record since the Lakers, I think, in the first week of the month of March. So I'm not discounting what they've done necessarily as far as how good they are. I think we just have to put a little perspective on who they've beaten. If I were Cleveland, I would get my act in gear pretty quick here, not because you're going to lose the East necessarily, but you got the team right behind you, your biggest contender, playing at their best right at the right time, and they're doing it with defense. The three-point shot is always there for Boston. We've talked about it all season. If they're hitting the threes, they're unbeatable. Or when they're not hitting the threes, it's a level playing field almost. But now they're doing it with defense. This is where they were last year before. They are a really, really good defensive team, and you're starting to see 103 points, I think Memphis had tonight at home. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and that honeymoon affair with a new coach didn't seem to help Memphis. I know that we've talked about that in the past with some interim head coaches that have gotten off to a hot start. Bruce, I really liked what you had to say about how Coach Joe Mazzulla has went about using his rotation, because it is a lot like what Oklahoma City is doing. I mean, the Thunder have Aaron Wiggins. You guys have Hauser. There's guys that step in. There's Kada. I think when it comes time for the playoffs, that's going to pay big dividends for this Celtics team, especially given we're not always clear on the health status of some of these guys, especially the aging vets like Al Horford. Guys are going to have to step up in key moments. And I think much like OKC has kind of proven that they've got rotational pieces that can step up when needed. I think Celtics have that too.
Well, and you didn't even mention Peyton Pritchard, who's been perhaps their biggest contributor off the bench. A lot of people think he's going to win Sixth Man of the Year. He may not, but he's going to be right there. If he doesn't win, it'll be in the top 2 or 3 for sure. Look, you mentioned Al Horford. What a luxury they have with Porzingis, who can be fragile physically, and you don't want to wear him down if you can avoid it. So Al Horford, by the way, came off the bench tonight, not because they let Xavier Tillman start the game at center tonight because he was back in Memphis and he's played hardly at all. So they let him start. Horford came in the game, came off the bench, had like 28 points and 9 rebounds off the bench. Al Horford, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, what a luxury to have a guy like that.
Yeah, anyone would.
It's important too.
To have that.
It's important because their regular starting 5, when it's Porzingis and Tatum and Brown and Holiday and Derek White, they haven't been on the court much this year. I think it's 22 games all season. And honestly, in terms of efficiency, they've been getting outscored per 100 possessions, that lineup this season. They haven't even played 400 minutes together. Last season, it was over 600 minutes on the court together. So, you want to see these guys healthy if you're Boston going forward. But having that depth is huge because you don't know exactly how long you're going to have that your regular lineup on the court in the postseason. It's a grind in the postseason, so it hadn't lasted through the regular season. Let's see how it does during the playoffs.
Now, World B, you mentioned grind. Let's talk about grit and grind, because the Taylor Jenkins firing remains a head scratcher, especially given the timing of this one. Does anybody have a great answer why you'd make this move this late into the season, right before the start of the playoffs? Because I'm mind blown by the timing of this one, Bruce.
Well, I would still like to get an honest explanation as to why they did this. Yeah. I mean, Taylor Jenkins, his coaching chops are well established. So, and the story is going to come out eventually. Eventually, we're going to know. So the GM's playing cutesy, saying it was my sole decision. Players weren't consulted. If that's the case, then I don't know that I have a ton of confidence in the guy if he's going to make a decision like that and the players aren't even consulted. And here's the thing. Taylor Jenkins is going to get another job, okay? It's not even a question. The question is, where will it be, whatever. But the fact that they haven't really cleanly explained why they let him go, there's going to be suspicion and sort of a cloud hanging over this guy. Hey, was this like an Ime Udoka thing where he was doing some kind of shenanigans that have nothing to do with basketball? I think until and unless they explain this a little bit, they're really doing that guy dirty a second time on top of firing him, but then letting him twist in the wind while people like us talk about, well, gee, why'd they let him go? He was a really good coach.
Yeah. World B, what's your thoughts?
Well, if you look at the timing is lousy, but if you look at this team, they're looking like they're going to be a first round exit the way they bottomed out in the second half of the season. I mean, they're nothing what we saw at the All-Star break. They had the fourth best record at the All-Star break. Coming out of the Western Conference, they had the fourth best record in the league at the All-Star break, and they've been nothing like we saw since the break. They're nothing what we saw at the break during the beginning of the season. They can't get the job done against the good teams. 3-11 against the 4 teams ahead of them in the West, and they're 33-9 against teams under 500. We want to see why they're really good. Their record is really good. Their numbers are for the longest time at the break, it was the Celtics, the Thunder, the Cavs, and the Grizzlies who were top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency. That was it. So they were one of the best all-around teams. But you go 11-20 against teams with a winning record, 33-9, as I mentioned, against teams that have a losing record. And, the defense bottomed out. I mean, they were one of the best defenses they were when they were healthy 2 years ago. Last year, they had nobody. They still had a good season defensively. It was offense where they struggled. Since the All-Star break, they're 20th in efficiency at the defensive end. They're not heading into the postseason with any sort of positive steam or whatever you want to call it. That being said, a week earlier, they weren't having any positivity. Why wasn't the change made then? Why wasn't it made 2 weeks ago? It's not like they suddenly bottomed out in the last. It's been happening since the break.
It really has. And the one thing I have to add on this is I hope the Suns owner, Mat Ishbia, is listening to our podcast, because I've got a nice tweak for him. Obviously, there is some buzz going around that Mike Budenholzer might be on the hot seat already in year one. I think they should just pay to bring in Taylor Jenkins to be lead assistant and kind of run the offense. Let Budenholzer get back to focusing in on the defense. I think he'd make a major impact on this Suns team. I think he'd connect with a guy like Devin Booker. And obviously they have a relationship because Taylor Jenkins worked under Bud in Milwaukee when they were there together. So keep an eye on that. I think Mat Ishbia should just get out his pocketbook, keep Bud around, but spend a little bit of money to get Coach Jenkins on board. And the last time the Suns had success, they had an offensive coordinator. That was Kevin Young. He ended up leaving the team under Frank Vogel and got the BYU job, and seems like he's having some big success out there. So Taylor Jenkins, come to Phoenix. I think that was what Suns fans need, and could maybe help turn the team around. Now, speaking of those Bucks guys, they've lost 4 straight. They gave up 145 points to Atlanta on Sunday. Dame is out indefinitely. Do we think they can even win a playoff series? I mean, they're in 6th right now. There's no signs of them even trying to catch the Pistons at this point, given their injury concerns. And Giannis is playing well, but it still doesn't really matter. Do you see them winning a playoff series at all, Bruce?
I just want to start my answer by saying somewhere Adrian Griffin is probably laughing his ass off. Not that the former Bucks coach has any beef with Damian Lillard. I'm sure he feels terrible about Dame's illness, as the entire basketball world, including the 3 of us, do. But when the then rookie head coach of the Bucks was fired after just 43 games with a record of 30-13 in his first and only season as a head coach, that was the team's high watermark basically since the start of last season and into this year. Since Griffin was fired, they're only 59-54. They were 30-13 when he was there, and that doesn't even include their 2-4 record in the playoffs last season. So to answer your question, now that my rant about that is over, with Lillard gone, even the most optimistic Bucks fans have got to be concerned about their playoff prospects. I mean, Bobby Portis is going to return for his 25-game suspension in time for the final 3 or 4 games of the regular season. So he's really going to have to ramp up his conditioning in a hurry if he's going to make any kind of difference in the postseason. And with Dame likely unavailable, he'll need to be great if the Bucks are going to win a first-round series. It's looking like they're going to probably get the Knicks at this point, and I don't see them beating the Knicks.
Yeah, speaking of the Knicks, World B, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think they stand any chance against your New York Knicks?
Well, as long as you have Giannis, I'd say you have a chance, because there's really nobody in the middle for New York that can slow him down. But, Knicks are 3-0 this season versus the Bucks, and it really hasn't been the game the other night when the Knicks beat them was kind of the Bucks played better, than they have been recently, but the Knicks never, as a fan, I never saw that as really being challenged by Milwaukee in that game. It just felt like, I wouldn't say comfortable, but I had a lot of confidence watching that game as the game went on. So I don't see the Bucks coming back. The problem with Milwaukee has been on the defensive end. It hasn't, we expected to be a big drop off. The 3-point shooting would disappear. The 3-point percentage in the 6 games since Lillard's been out has been just about the same as it was, when he was in there earlier this month. So it hasn't been a big drop off in that regard. They're just getting killed in the middle. They're giving up a ton of points in the middle. During this losing streak, opponents are shooting over 50% from the field, which is what you expect to happen if you're a bottom feeder in the league. But teams are shooting like 64% in the paint. Yeah. There's no defense in the middle. And last time I checked, Brook Lopez was still around. He hadn't gotten in trouble or anything. So they're just having a really rough time defensively. And we talked about how the Celtics are peaking at the right time, and Clippers are one of those teams we mentioned are peaking at the right time out west. Well, the Bucks are doing a complete up. They're going to get in the playoffs, and they're not going to stay in that 6th spot. But, they're looking like a third straight first-round exit.
Yeah. I have some breaking news about the New York Knicks, by the way. P.J. Tucker is signing a 2-year deal with the Knicks. P.J. Tucker, who's about 93 years old, okay?
I'm on board.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a good locker room guy. I mean, his last gig, they kind of stuck him at the end of the bench and forgot about him. So I think he's a Tibbs kind of a guy, and I think he'll be a coach on the bus, a coach in the locker room. But that's interesting. He had 2 10-day contracts. Now he's getting a 2-year contract. So good for you, PJ.
He's the new Taj Gibson for the New York Knicks. And,
that's right.
Couldn't be more happy for the guy. So best of luck to PJ. Always had a lot of good times with that guy when I was with the Suns. Next up, let's talk about the team that jumped the Bucks in the standings. That is the Detroit Pistons. And, by the way, let's also talk about the Wolves because they had a nice brawl on Sunday. We'll keep our eyes open for, of course, the possible suspensions. I don't know if we have any breaking news on that. I hadn't seen anything handed down as of taping here tonight. But, some franchises have a culture, and when Detroit is good, they seem to always just be the bad boys. Obviously, this is led by Isaiah Stewart, who seems to be the embodiment of that attitude. But I also want to mention to you guys, rookie Ron Holland's a close second right behind him. He likes to really shake things up in games as well. He talks a lot of smack as a rookie, and obviously that doesn't go over too well with some of the veterans of the league. So, World B, I'll start with you on this question. What was your initial reactions after seeing what took place in Minnesota on Sunday night?
Well, it's quite a transformation from the Pistons. A season ago they were boys bad, and now this season they're bad boys. That's nice. What we're dealing with. I mean, 14 wins last season. There wasn't anything good about it. They've had a great year, but this act is getting really – there's a difference between being tough and being cheap. And Isaiah Stewart is really – he goes on the other side of cheap. It's really fake tough stuff there. I mean, there's toughness. He obviously has it. He defends really well at the rim, one of the best in the league. But the act gets really old where he lifts Dante DiVincenzo up off the court Sunday night, and then pushes him in the back when he gets him up. I mean, that's just stupid stuff there. He gets involved in that brawl where he had no business really being involved in. Wasn't trying to break it up, which he could have easily have done. He just wanted to be a part of it. The act gets really old. This is a team that's really had a great season. We talked about Bickerstaff as a coach of the year candidate. If it wasn't for Atkinson in Cleveland, he might be the guy. But then he goes and gets in a shouty match with the assistant for the Timberwolves during the
Pablo Prigioni.
Yeah.
Former Nick.
You don't mess with Pablo. That's a no-no. So it's just the act is getting old. And I say this as a fan of the 90s Knicks here during the glory days when Charles Oakley would probably smack you around if you looked at him funny. So it's not, it sounds a little hypocritical to me or whatever, but there's toughness and there's being a punk. And the Pistons too often during this whole thing, led by Isaiah Stewart, come off as punks.
Bruce, what's your take on that?
It was the malice not in the palace on Sunday. when Detroit basketball, they heated up a snowy Sunday night in the Twin Cities. Yes, everything you guys said, I totally agree with. I thought, while their scrappiness at this point doesn't live up to, say, Bill Laimbeer against Robert Parrish, it did feature, as Ross mentioned, a very scrappy Ron Holland and a very physical Beef Stew. And, I think when Ron Holland started woofing at Naz Reid, Naz looked at him, and it was almost like if he would have wanted to just fling it up backhand, he could have knocked that guy into the third row. The fact that he didn't, I thought, showed good restraint by Naz, because Naz, I mean, he's a force out there. He's a physical guy. And Ron Holland, compared to him, it's like, mouse in the house, as somebody used to say. So the fact that Dante DiVincenzo was in the middle of it, I know World B said he shouldn't have been, and it's true. But somehow or another, Dante DiVincenzo reminds me a little bit of Grayson Allen, in that somehow or another, they always end up in these things for some reason. I don't know why, but we'll see if there's any suspensions or additional penalties. I think if there were going to be, we would have found out about it on Monday. So I'm guessing if anything, it'll be some fines.
By the way, well, here's another thing too. We talked about it from the Pistons end. This is a bad situation for the Timberwolves if they're going to lose guys. They're on a roll these days. We talk about teams in the West. They're 11-3 in the month of March, and they've been playing really good ball. They came back. There was a 10-point game. They were down when that incident happened, and they ended up blowing the doors off Detroit after that, who didn't have Cade Cunningham, obviously. But this is a bad spot for them. If they got the Nuggets on Tuesday, a game where they could actually sweep the Nuggets in the season series and get a little momentum. I don't think they have enough to catch Denver or whatever, or get up to that 2 spot. But they're playing well enough to at least have that notion. And now you could lose DiVincenzo. Now you could lose Naz Reid and whoever may have come off the bench. I don't know how that all works out. But, yeah, this is potentially a bad spot for Minnesota, maybe more so than Detroit.
Yeah, and speaking of those suspensions, Bruce, I actually got to be honest here and respectfully disagree. I think there are going to be suspensions that are handed out. I think just given how many people were involved in that, coaches, players, security guys, trainers, everyone, there had been so many angles that the league office had to review today, reports that they had to kind of skim through from. I mean, I don't know all the things that go down with those altercations, but I think there's a lot of things that needed to be ironed out today. And I think by tomorrow morning, we're going to start seeing some of those penalties, but a little odd that we didn't see them today.
Yeah.
So
no, you're probably right. I mean, I certainly see your point there.
The league doesn't go for this stuff. Obviously they do not, we see how they are with fouls, heavy fouls, the flagrant fouls, the flagrant ones and things like that. And how they go to the replay booth for elbows, incidental if they or not. So they're not going to look too kindly to what happened on Sunday. And I agree with you, Ross. I think there will be suspensions. I just, like you said, maybe it's just waiting for tomorrow. And if I'm Minnesota, I'm like, well, we need to know. We got to get ready here.
Yep. And one last quick hitter here before we shut things down here tonight. Let's circle back on March Madness because my Marquette Golden Eagles were a disappointing first-round exit falling to New Mexico. And Bruce, got to give you some credit here, taking Michigan. They had a strong showing, making it to the Sweet 16 before losing to the number 1 seed Auburn Tigers. But real quickly here, I want to get both of you guys to tell me who wins it all next Monday night. Bruce, start us off.
Auburn all the way, baby.
All right, World B, who do you got?
I think it's going to be Houston. I think they're the oldest team they could be one of the oldest teams in the NBA. And the way there's some of their kids there. So I think experience and age will win out in this one. I think they will win the championship.
All right, I'm going with Calvin Sampson's team as well with Houston, and that should be a lot of fun. But as for now, that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe, presented by BetOnline. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you next week to be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everyone.